everybody, it's Meredith Miller with Inner Integration, and today I want to talk about asking for help. This video was inspired because yesterday I attended an online group coaching session with my coach, Charlie Caldwell. I'm going to put his link below so you can check him out if you want to. He helped me so much. I did a 3-month coaching program one-on-one with him during the fall, and I had mentioned to him recently that I'm looking into creating a group coaching program. So he invited me to observe. I missed the last one because I was traveling and the internet wasn't good. So I happened to be there last night, and the topic was caring. This is from Brendon Burchard's Charged Life series. So the topic was caring, right? And a question that he asked us during the session was, if you knew that you were cared for, who would you be more vulnerable with? And what help would you ask for? So if you knew that you were cared for, right? And what he said too was that caring is necessary to feel psychologically safe and accepted. And essentially, you need help. You need the caring and help of others, that kind of support, in order to create your dreams. And I believe that's entirely true, and also applies to the self-healing journey after narcissistic abuse. You do need help along the way. So the thing is that it's hard to ask for help, right? Because maybe what happened was you met an abusive person who that's how they conned you. Like they came in offering help, or you asked for help, you had some kind of need. And so they set up some sort of loan sharking con where they pretended to help you and like do all this stuff, but then they expected something in return, or they used it against you in some way to hurt you, to shame you, to create some sort of dependency on them, right? So maybe like me, you learned, okay, asking for help is dangerous. And then maybe like me, you learned this whole attitude of, I can do it myself, right? And that attitude sounds like strength, but the reality is that it's coming from a point of weakness, right? I can do it myself. Sounds like strength, but it's actually weakness. If you saw the last video I did, I mentioned this little anecdote about this little girl that I saw that very first day I landed in Peru, in Cusco. My friend and I went to this cafe in a totally residential neighborhood where pretty much like everyone is Peruvian, and in walked this white guy and his little blonde girl. You know, she was maybe like 3 or 4 years old. She was trying to open some kind of package and she was struggling with it, and dad was trying to help, and she had her hand on her hips and she was just like, I can do it myself. And in that moment, looking at her was just like this wake-up call for me. Like that was the reflection of my inner child. Like that was the part of me that couldn't ask for help. That was the part of me that was like, I don't need anybody, and I can do it alone, and I can spend the rest of my life alone. And I realized that like not only could I not ask for help, like I have a really hard time receiving help, like even when people are offering it. And what I realized ends up happening in the aftermath of narcissistic abuse is that reinforces the loneliness wound, right? Because you can't ask for help and you can't receive help, so you feel really alone. And then on top of that, it reinforces the perception of nobody cares about me, I don't matter, I'm unworthy. So it becomes this like very negative self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, here's the thing. What happens when someone cares about you is magic. And it can shift everything if you're willing and you're open. So what happens when someone cares about you is you feel safe. You feel supported. So it feels okay to be vulnerable, right? Like it's not okay to be vulnerable with dangerous people. It's okay and healthy to be vulnerable with people who support you, who are caring towards you. And so that whole like overprotected, scared ego, can chill out and receive the help. So let me give you a little story about how this happened. Like I went to Peru so that I could plan a retreat, so that I could bring people there so they can have a transformative experience. But I knew that in order to open that door, I had to be willing to heal the fears and the trauma that I had left not only there, but from a lifetime that I had been carrying. So I arrive at the airport, I see my friend, and so we're going up to meet each other. We embrace, and there's all, the airport chaos. And so we're like turning to go towards the car. And in that one movement, he grabs my suitcase and we're walking. And I was just like, oh, okay, he's helping me, right? This was such a foreign idea to me that someone was like just gonna help me with my suitcase. I didn't even have to ask, right? And then we get to the place that we're staying, and he's outside working out the car, and a phone call, I think, and I was inside with the Airbnb guy, and we get to the staircase, and the guy's like, so your bedroom's on the third floor. Are you going to be able to carry that? Looking at my suitcase. And I was like, oh, I'll ask my friend, And so he's coming in the door and he's got this little backpack on. And I was like, do you think can I carry your backpack maybe? And then would you be all right? Can you carry my suitcase up the stairs? And he just looked at me, closed the door, came in, grabbed my suitcase and took it up. And I was like, oh, okay, that was easy. And then 2 days later, as we're leaving, we're packing everything up. And I said to him, do you think maybe could you carry my suitcase downstairs? Would that be okay? And his answer was obviously. But this was such a foreign idea to my mind. Not only that someone would be so willing to help, but how easy it was to ask for help. And those were just the little things, right? So then as the week progressed, when he would challenge me lovingly and compassionately to face my fears, he would call me out on my fears and my panic and challenge me to face them. But he did it in a way that I sensed his caring. He did it in a way that I was able to feel safe to face the vulnerability of these lifetime fears and create this massive transformation, which otherwise had been impossible. So let me give you a stark contrast, right? The first time that I went to Peru, which was in 2007, and I was studying with the teacher and I was working as his translator, and he had a group of only English-speaking students. We had gone to this place and we met up with the Quero Indians that came from the very high mountains, and they were doing coca leaf readings. All the coca leaves, and they'd throw them out and they'd give you some sort of divination reading about your life. And at the very end, they offered to read me, and I was like, okay. And so they're reading me, but I'm not translating this to the people because there's no point. It's just for me. And so they told me all these lovely things, and all your leaves are facing the sky, but except for this one fat leaf that was facing downward, which the Quero Indian said, and this is your big, ugly fear. And I was like, touche, right? But my teacher, in his minimal English, says, and only this, she have big, ugly fear. And everybody's laughing. And I just felt like this ashamed, scared little child wanted to curl into a ball and just melt away. So what do you think happened there? Did any growth happen? No, no growth whatsoever. Just a rebellious inner child and an upset ego and just discomfort. And no, I wasn't able to make the shift, to make the growth, because I didn't sense caring. I just sensed someone shaming me and embarrassing me in front of everybody else. Now, fast forward 10 years to 2017, and it's in the middle of the night. It's the first night in this Airbnb house, and the construction of the house is all wood, and it's just so thin between the floors and on the stairs and everything that if someone's moving in the house, you hear everything. So the middle of the night, I hear this noise, and immediately my brain panics, and someone's in the house, right? And so I'm like, someone's in the house. And my friend wakes up, and he gets up, and he's in warrior mood, and he's listening, and he's like, no, that's next door. It's next door. Can you hear it now? Everything's okay. And he held me. And maybe an hour or something later, again, I hear the noise, but this time I'm certain the person is right there. And I'm like, someone's in the house. And of course he gets up again because he hears the noise too. And he investigates it. And he's like, no, it's next door. Can you hear it now? And now they're getting into the car. And then he held me and we fell asleep. And, He didn't give me a lecture. He didn't shame me, embarrass me. He didn't leave me alone to my fears, to worry. He held me. He made me feel safe. He made me feel cared for. The next day, we were driving, and that's when he took the opportunity to say, you know, that panic, those fears that you have, that's pretty abnormal. And I said, I know, it's just the PTSD, I have this panic, and I have a dog, and I'm with the dog, everything's okay, and I'm not with the dog, and I'm in a new place, and new places are scary. And I went through all this rationalization and excuses, and he was just like, and I'm like, oh, and growing up and this and that. And he was like, when are you going to stop tormenting yourself with that? Like, when are you going to let that go? When is enough enough? And in the way that he handled that with such caring, I was able to be vulnerable. I was able to see my shit and move through it and let those fears go and let that panic go. And I don't feel that anymore. I don't have that anymore. And that transformation was because of him. It was because of his ability to show me that caring that I was able to be so vulnerable to receive the help that he was offering me. So that's the difference that happens when someone's caring to you and when someone isn't. That is the difference when someone cares. So the question that I have for you then today is, can you ask for help when you feel cared for? Can you ask for help when you feel cared for so that you can move through the challenges in your self-healing recovery? Right? And then after that, beyond that, create the dreams of your life. And then, can you receive the help that others are offering you? Or will you shut yourself down? Does your stubborn inner child get in there with his or her hand on the hip and like, I can do it myself? Or are you going to receive the help? So, I just want to remind you that no one can do it for you, right? Asking for help is one thing. Comparing that to the rescue fantasy that a lot of us had and maybe still have along the journey. You might have the fantasy that someone's going to come in and rescue you or hit the magic button and everything's going to be okay and it's all going to go away. And that's that. The reality is no one can do it for you. They can only open the door and point the way. But you essentially have to walk through that. And sometimes that's all you need is someone to open that door with care and say, everything's all right. I care for you. Do you want to walk through? Do you want to receive my help? So as I'm writing this book on the 3 stages of the self-healing process after narcissistic abuse, I've come up with sort of like these 3 archetypes of allies that you want to have in your life as you're going through this process. And I want to talk about one of those people during the next video that I make, one of those really important people who can help you in your journey. So I am sending you all a big hug.